our Earth is a far stranger place than you could ever imagine. With this in mind, I present to you this tale of wonder and mystery. The story I am about to share with you is claimed to be true. From the book Strangely Enough by C.D. Colby, this story is entitled The Frightened Dog. A faded photograph I've had for many years shows a tall, thin boy and a white dog sitting on a porch. Tom, the boy in the picture, grew up in North Carolina, where he and his friends often went on hunting trips into the woods and swamps. One day they set forth with their guns and Tom's dog, planning to be gone only a few hours. However, late that afternoon, it began to rain very hard. Since they were far from home, they decided to spend the night in an abandoned shack they had stumbled upon, rather than try to find their way home in the dark. The shack was empty except for some rubbish, a few old clothes, and a lantern, which still had some kerosene in it. Eventually the boys fell asleep on the floor, with the dog curled up beside them, while the rain splattered upon the roof overhead. Sometime during the night, the boys were awakened by the dog whining and scratching at the door to get out. They noticed that he was trembling violently, and that the hair on his back was raised as though he were either frightened or angry. Rather sleepily, one of the boys started for the door to let the pup out. Then he froze in his tracks. From the black woods outside the shack came a weird, startling sound, a combination of whine, low moan, and rising and falling wail. It was like nothing the boys had heard before anywhere. They all stared at each other and reached for their light rifles for protection as the dog ran about the shack, barking and whining and showing his teeth. One boy quickly lighted the lantern. The window openings of the shack contained no glass, but were covered with mosquito netting, and suddenly the dog hurled himself through one of these openings and ran off into the woods, snarling and barking. The three boys waited with hearts pounding and 22s clutched in their hands. The strange sound from outside faded away in the distance, and then there was nothing but the patter of rain on the tin roof to break the silence. A few minutes later, the boys heard running footsteps outside. Before they could raise their guns, the dog leaped back through the broken netting and came toward them, whining and shaking, with his tail tucked between his legs. He was a very frightened white dog. And that was the most amazing part of the adventure, for when he had left the shack to run into the woods after the thing, he had been black.